World War II shaped the lives of a generation. The war broke families apart, brought communities together, and turned a depressed economy into an industrial machine. On the home front, citizens sold war bonds and collected scrap metal for the factories. Friends were made and lost as a generation of boys was sent into combat. Penn State Public Broadcasting invited those who lived this history to share their stories of World War II.
I was born in Brooklyn, July 21st, 1926. I was drafted November 4th, 1944 in the Army, 3.5 months past my 18th birthday. I was shipped to Camp Joseph T. Robinson outside of Little Rock for basic training. The rigors were very difficult. The weather was terrible, rainy and cold. But I came face to face with anti-Semitism. I was with a few soldiers from the Midwest, and they made some anti-Semitic remarks. I told them I was Jewish and I didn't like it. And they said, well, you're a regular guy. We like you. We'll call you a white Jew. Anyway, about a month into my basic training, the Germans launched a very large offensive, which we call the Battle of the Bulge. So my basic training was curtailed to get me ready in case they needed me to repel the German surge. Anyway, the German offensive was blunted, and at the end of my basic training, I landed in a troop ship in Le Havre, France, April 2nd, 1945. We were aboard ship for a few days, and we thought that the war was drawing to a close in Germany, and we'd be shipped to Japan to fight the Japanese. It wasn't to be. I was sent to a northwest German city called Aachen to begin my army of occupation. I was considered a rifleman replacement. So my duty was 2 hours on and 4 hours off. And we were concerned that there'd be violence from the Germans. There was never. All my time in Germany, not one situation of violence occurred. The Germans knew they were beaten, and they accepted it. So, with the knowledge of Yiddish, I could communicate with the Germans. And it was like they were reading a script. I asked them if they knew anything about concentration camps. They said no. I said, was there any violence against Jews in Aachen? They said no. Did they know what happened to the Jews that were taken out of the community? They said no. Did they know anything about slave labor? They said no. But they did say it was a mistake for Germany to get in the war with the United States, and they will help us fight the Russians in the next war. Now, this is 1945, before the Cold War. Anyway, after a few months, I was shipped to another unit because they were rotating trips to go home and reforming units. I was not about ready to go home. I just got there. Anyway, it was a city called Kam near the Czech border. Nice unit, it was a command unit. And I was again 2 hours on and 4 hours off. Right? But in the 4 hours off, I learned to play ping pong very well. So it was a positive nature. But it was the custom at night for the guards in the motor pool to go to sleep. There was no problem with the Germans. Unfortunately, I got caught. So the officer of the day said, well, look, you're only a kid. Forget about it. But he didn't forget about it. He told the captain. And the captain had me Court Marshal. So I had to appear before a Court Martial board, senior officers of another unit. And they assigned me a second lieutenant from the same unit. And the second lieutenant said, look, you plead guilty, you get a suspended sentence because of your youth and your good record, and that'll be the end of it. Well, the more knowledgeable non-commissioned officers in my unit said, you were never officially put on guard. Someone shook you, woke you up, said, go relieve the guard. That's not how it's done. Use that as your defense. So I said, I don't want to make waves. I'll do what the second lieutenant says. So when the sentence came down, it was 2/3 loss of pay for 6 months, which is the most they can take from you, and 1 month hard labor. And I'm waiting for suspended sentence, but it doesn't say. My lieutenant's looking out the window. He's not looking at me. Anyway, they wanted to be lenient so I could do my hard labor in my own company. But there was no hard labor. We had all the Germans doing the work. And the captain loved the softball team. And I was a great shortstop. So I was allowed to play softball as my hard labor. But in the dugout, there was always a soldier with a rifle. And I figured if I made an error, they'd shoot me. A week later, it comes down from high headquarters that they gave me the wrong court martial. It should have been more serious. And they vacated the whole court martial. So I dodged the bullet. Okay. Soon after that, I was transferred again to another unit. And my life changed in the Army. A few days into that unit, it was announced that the Army had set up a college in the south of France for those soldiers who want to get back into college. And you needed a high school education to qualify. And also, the length of service was a priority. I figured, look, I was still a kid in the Army, and but I did have a high school education. So I applied. And strangely enough, I was accepted, because very few of the men in that unit had a high school education. So I was on my way to Biarritz, 3 days across Germany and France. Biarritz is the site of, between Bordeaux and Spain, on the Bay of Biscay. And it was a resort where the pre-war English spent their vacations. It was a grand place, grand hotels. What the French did with the Army food was a miracle. You could know it was Army food. We had string quartets playing at dinner and lunch. I took courses in economics. I was stationed in a nice rooming house, not in one of the hotels. Swimming in November in the Bay of Biscay. Is this the Army? Anyway, it's a 3-month semester. My 3 months are up. I get no orders. You don't go any place in the Army without orders. So I signed up for another 3 months. Finally, my orders caught up with me, went back to Germany, and this time I went to Nuremberg. They said I was AWOL. What AWOL? Here's my orders. Anyway, I was not about to go back to 2 hours on and 4 hours off. I had my fill of that. So I said, I'm an expert typist. I learned it in high school. Oh, that's a specialty we need. So they put me in the personnel office. And that was good. A good office job, 9 to 5, an hour for lunch. You can't beat that. Anyway, soon after that, the whole personnel group went home on rotation, and I became head of that department and made a sergeant. Okay. About a month or so after that, the colonel wanted to start a newspaper, Regimental newspaper. So I volunteered. I figured that'd be interesting. I had no experience in newspaper work, but it was interesting. I was getting bored with the personnel work. So myself and 3 others were assigned to do a newspaper. And I was a senior member. They were all privates. I was a sergeant. So I set up the timetable. For Monday and Tuesday, we did nothing but have a good time. And Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, we did writing and put the paper to bed. And Thursday night, we stayed up all night and finalized the paper. I was the only one who was allowed to leave because the Red Cross ran a ping pong tournament. And remember, I was an expert player. And if you won, you had a choice between a paddle shaped like a cake or a carton of cigarettes. Now, you have to understand, a carton of cigarettes on the black market was $50. $50. So American soldiers were very ingenious about handling that. But I couldn't take the cigarettes. I had to take the cake and come back to finish the paper for the staff. So I had to take the paddle and a case of Coke. Anyway, that went on, and I set up a procedure which was, for us, very terrific. We highlighted each issue a different unit of the regiment. The first, of course, was the colonel and his staff, and he was delighted. I mean, you know, I would say this, but you wouldn't be able to print it. He was pissed in his pants. He was so happy. Anyway, he sent it to his high command, sent it home to his family. The next one was the first sergeant who ran the unit. And then it was motor pool, got all the gas and vehicles we needed. Mess, we got all the extra food we wanted. But the biggest thing was the medics. Because we get grain alcohol mixed with orange juice, made a terrific cocktail. Then there was a supply sergeant, and we got whatever clothes we wanted. And so it was really, nobody bothered us. Everybody was happy. And I got to learn about writing articles and newspaper work. And after a couple of months of that, I took a trip to Nuremberg to visit the war crimes trial. And being Jewish, it was an experience that was etched in my mind when Göring and Hess, the big-time leaders, were on trial. And they had headphones where you could turn to 4 languages, Russian, German, English, and French. And it made such an impression on me that I could never go back again. And it's still in my mind. But anyway, getting back, Stars and Stripes, in one of their issues, said they needed new staff people. The staff people were going home, and they would want to recruit new people with newspaper experience. So we took a trip to Stars and Stripes, Alsdorf near Frankfurt. It was about 300 miles. And we met with Captain Link, who was the administrator, and we showed him our paper, and he laughed. He laughed. He said, "This is not a paper. I mean, we're running a professional paper here." He said, "Well, leave it with me, and we'll see what we can do, and give me your information." And so we went back, discouraged and so forth. But about 10 days later, the colonel calls us in, and he is furious. I mean, he's fuming. I knew what it was all about. He got our transfers. Now, the Stars and Stripes are right under the High Command European Theater of Operation. And there's nothing you can do about it. Don't you know if you want to transfer, you have to go through your own command first? And I motioned to the other 3 people, don't say anything. Just let them go, because you can't do anything about it. So we're on our way to Stars and Stripes, and there were several other people who were new, and Captain Link said, "Look, you guys are not ready to work on the paper. I recruited you because we needed new people, but I'm bringing a professor of journalism in from Boston College. You'll attend a class for 10 days, 8 hours a day, and maybe then we could put you on the paper." And boy, it was a real crash course. And, 10 days, 8 hours a day. I was put on a sports desk. So one interesting experience was I was covering a soccer game. And I learned the power of the press. A general comes up to me, gives me a bottle of whiskey and his card. You know what the message was? Get my name in the paper. But then something different happened. I guess they were short of people, so they sent me to cover the Salzburg Music Festival. That's famous worldwide. And it's a beautiful town. I was the first one since the war. And I also learned the power of press because nothing was too good for me. The food, where I stayed, everything. Love. Well, when I went back to the Stars and Stripes, I had a leave coming. So another good thing happened to me. I have an extended family in London. My grandfather's brother went to England. My grandfather went to the United States. And they treated me so wonderfully. The family, it was marvelous. Really marvelous. Not only that, but when my Stars and Stripes passed, I got to see all the live shows in town. And the one I remember once was a Midsummer's Night Dream Shakespeare. And it was done in the park, on location. So that was wonderful. So I went back to Germany, and in a short while, a couple of months, I was home. So that was January 1947. It's hard for me to believe that all this happened in 26 months. That's like a lifetime. So there were bad experiences, good experiences, and I benefited by it. I think it helped me indirectly to live my life. That's it.